And now to our next speaker. In the age of Baby Yoda, I think it takes guts to call an organization JEDI. It's the acronym for Joint European Disruptive Initiative. Think of it as the European DARPA that wants to accelerate Europe's leadership in disruptive innovations. Our Jedi Knight did not serve in the Clone Wars, but I think he could have. He's an aerospace engineer and an ace pilot, a colonel with the French Air Force People's Reserve. He worked at Airbus and in private equity and venture capital, and he was special advisor to the French Minister of Defense. Please welcome the man who has everything except the lightsaber, André Loesekrug-Pietri. Welcome. Great to have you. How are you?
Thank you.
We can hear you, we can see you. Take it away. Thank you.
Wonderful. So thank you very much for this introduction. I listened very carefully to all the previous speakers, and what is pretty amazing about what Fabian, what Hans, what Chris said, notice they all mentioned China. And the topic I want to talk to you about today is really this relationship between AI, technology at large, and democracy. I mean, I spent myself 10 years in China. I'm not one of these anti-Chinese, at the contrary, but it's when you are there that you realize how important the values and the system in which we live are, and how much probably, if we don't do something and something big and something bold very quickly, this democracy is at risk. And I'm not talking about a generation. I'm talking about a couple of years ahead. And I think you heard these calls, which I thought were very pregnant. The other thing, as was just introduced, indeed, the word DARPA appeared in all of these topics. So what are we waiting for? But, well, actually, 9 months ago, we decided with a group of 100, now we are several thousands of scientists, academia, people from the deep tech ecosystem. Many of JEDIs are in this very room or listening to us today. And also big corporates, to say we cannot just play defense in Europe. Defense is not a strategy. We need to tax probably more. We need to regulate probably better, but we are only in defense, we will lose. How can we invent the next big thing? And look at it. I mean, I'm speaking to you, unfortunately. I mean, Berlin is my hometown, but unfortunately I could not come because I'm currently based in Paris. So thank you to Corona. We're using Zoom. Zoom didn't exist 7 years ago. So we are talking about an age where actually no position is here forever. So it's all about inventing the next big thing. And that's where DARPA is a model for us. And this is what we are currently doing in Europe. So let me delve into the topics that will be linked with democracy and go a bit deeper on how AI really challenges democracy. Let's think about it. What is democracy? It's about core principles: civil rights, due process, equality, rule of law, and freedoms. They are all challenged today by AI, but AI can be also a tool to accelerate them. So let me go in detail on 3 specific points, which are the core of all of our societies. First, an organization, a startup, a political body, everything is about decision makings. So let's think really hard how AI is completely changing decision making. And Corona is an incredible case study of what can go well and what can go very, very wrong. Think about, do today policymakers really understand citizen? Do corporate executives understand the team they're working? Are they able to attract the new generation? Think about how AI is able to set the agenda, to understand the underlying trends, the small trends, but also those who can potentially have a massive impact tomorrow. We also can imagine in this information age and this acceleration age as a way to actually propose policies. I mean, I'm coming indeed from the aerospace industry. There is one breakthrough that AI allowed, but actually very basic big data analysis, is what we call predictive maintenance. When you have engines collecting thousands of data every single second, it's impossible to actually cross-correlate all the different factors. AI is able to actually give a sense, give this kind of compass that today we are all lacking. We are all going from one day to another, not understanding what will happen in a week, in a month, and not even saying a year. If we don't have that, especially in our democracies, it's going to be increasingly the authoritarian states that, for very bad reasons, and the more I think about it, the more I don't want these systems applied to us, that will win because they will be able to give a vision. Think about the number of corporate executives that come back from China and they're all fascinated, and there is a good reason for that, by the China 2025 plan or the plan of the Communist Party for 2049. What do we do in Europe? We go from crisis council to crisis council. Every 6 months, there is another crisis emergency recovery plan. We need to, and that's where AI can help us. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail, happy to share that presentation with those interested, but there are a lot of use cases where that can be done. And think about what has been done, said earlier on the tracing apps, where probably we don't understand how we can make use of it. And why is it so critical? Because simply we have entered an age where we've gone beyond our cognitive capabilities. This is the amount, I mean, we all talk about exponential. Exponential was a very technical or elitist word 6 months ago. Today, everybody understands what an exponential is, but that's what's happening with the number of data we're getting. And so if we don't have AI to augment ourselves, to be able to make better decisions, better informed decisions, increasingly we will have the sentiment that somebody else is taking these decisions for us. And I think this graph shows, probably materializes what this exponential era is all about. And it's all about empowerment. This is probably this fragmentation of society. I think, Fabian, you spoke about that earlier. The fragmentation is because you increasingly have large amounts of people, be it the red states in the US or the extremes in our own societies, that feel that they don't have any more control on their lives. So what we need is not to put technology in the middle, but have technology enable each and every of us to really take back control, and not in the way the Brexit has started. It's really about the individual and not about some individual egoism. But it's also challenging our democratic processes. I mean, fake news has been never as important as before. This is a topic that most of you know very well, but think about the boom we just experimented in the last US elections. A few data points here. I mean, Trump made, and I don't know how you are able actually to do that. That is pretty much an achievement, quote in brackets, 20,000 fake informations in 1,300 days. It's incredible. I mean, we all remember the Cambridge Analytica play. So we are today in an age where these fake news generated automatically using echo chambers, because this is the business model of the big platform. So I'm not anti-platform because they have 30% market share in e-commerce, or they have 90% market share of the research. I'm more and more against these platforms because they actually increase, with the use of big data, they use actually the worst in us, which is this pleasure that we have to hear information which is information that is closer to our beliefs. And actually, instead of having an open internet, we're increasingly seeing this segmentation into different echo chambers that don't talk to each other anymore. And think about, again, what a democracy is all about. A democracy is about the public debate. If this public debate is hijacked, or is it transformed with the help of AI, then it's the worst that can happen to us. I'm going to go very specifically on deepfakes, which is a topic which is really one of the frontiers of AI. It's about the generative adversarial network. So it's one of the branch of artificial intelligence. It's basically systems that learn against each other and that make the detection of deepfake by definition extremely complicated, because as soon as you have a small, item or avatar that can actually make you understand that this video is actually not a true video, the system actually autocorrects itself. So today it's one of the frontiers. And who again is putting massive efforts? Not the German government, not the EU government. They do a lot of speeches. And I completely agree with Hans. These are individual great people. I mean, we probably have civil servants. It's too easy to criticize the politicians that really want to do good for most of them. But the system is today just incapable of just reacting. And who again is trying to find a solution on deepfakes? It's, for example, Facebook that a couple of months ago launched a grand challenge on deepfakes. Do we really want, on top of their existing power, platforms determine what is truth and what is not truth? I don't think so, and I think it's important for the Europeans and for the true democrats to react. The other challenges is obviously about how can we make sure that we don't achieve some kind of fragmentation of markets, of trust. How is AI by definition built with this level of confidence that it's not biased by a gender or by a category of people? So all these, and that's why it's a thin line. It's not about anti or pro regulation. It's about building the right AI from scratch and experiment as much as possible. So I completely follow the calls on saying, if we continue like trying to find the big regulation and a perfect product, the train will have departed with us, and we will not be able to shape the future that is really happening under our eyes. And we should not underestimate how much this pandemic has laid bare, and I'm a true believer in Europe, that actually as soon as there's a crisis, every country reacted on itself. A little bit like the AI strategies, 27 countries, 27 strategies. There's no connection whatsoever, whatever we can hear. The famous Schulterschluss, starting between the French and the German, is still in its infancy 2 years ago. So this is a true call for action. So we really need to make that as a tool that helps democracies and that is not just undermining its fundament. Last but not least, another topic which is very well known, but probably not in the dimensions. And today we have probably half of the countries in the UN who are using actively surveillance technologies using AI. So you have mostly US and Chinese companies that are doing that. You have the top exporters, the IBMs, the Palantir, the Ciscos. We need to know what we want. It's not about banning these companies, obviously, but we need much more transparency of what is going on. I think democracy is not about regulation. Democracy is about transparency and empowerment of the individual. Today, I will give you an example which is happening in a French city. You would say, and I on purpose, of course, you have the US, which is well known for movies like Minority Report. It's actually happening more or less in Baltimore or in some Florida counties. But think about probably the two countries that you would say are the most cautious about individual rights. And I took Sweden, I took France. Well, in Sweden, the Swedish police is today using AI in face recognition to track personal data. It's not that it's bad. It's about chasing criminals, but interestingly, at the beginning, it was not something where the regulator was informed. And in my other country, which is France, you have several cities who today accepted the offer, the famous offer you cannot refuse, by a large Chinese vendor, offering basically to put free of charge the infrastructure of cameras, etc. And in Saint-Etienne, they went even further. They tried to use sounds in order to predict if there was a violent act being committed. Again, the principle in itself is not reprehensible. We are talking about the safety of a society. But we are doing all these things without the transparency and without the enlightenment that I think all citizens need to deserve. So again, it's not about defense. It's not about doing that in a secret place. It's about taking back control and really empowering all of us to make the best out of it. So what can we do? And now I go back to really what is our Our mission is not just to say there's a problem. Our mission is not about saying we need to protect ourselves because the train will advance. Our mission is to make sure all of us, it's not just about JEDI, it's about a societal mission, is make sure that we embed our values into the technologies of tomorrow, that we invent the technologies that will have by design this humanistic individual rights approach, these democratic rights that you can embed. I will give you a few examples. Deepfakes. How can we make sure that we detect real time what is a fake video and what is a true video? Today, some companies will claim they can detect with high accuracy. You know, it's about the false positives and the false negatives, another term that has become a mainstream. But today it's a real frontier. We will launch specifically a challenge on that because it's not just about the political system. Imagine a big brand where suddenly one of their, I don't know, their key people or their CEO, one of the big banks, where you have a video of the CEO saying, well, actually our bank is currently having cash problems. This isn't a video, impossible to avoid that it becomes viral. The next day you have a real live cash bank run. Imagine a big brand, which is really also based on the trust. And so then suddenly one of the big French luxury brands, you have one of their models who say, well, actually, again, in a deepfake video, this brand is using animal material or doing tests. It's hundreds of millions of euros that the next day can immediately be destroyed on the stock market. Because it will be impossible for the company to say that it's actually not true, because today these deep fake videos, for the best of them, are so convincing. So it's an issue that has political but also massive economic and societal consequences. Echo chamber. This is a topic we hear for several years, but what have the Europeans done in order to create another kind of business model? We need to fight business model against business model. These platforms that are only relying on this capacity of self-entertaining. I mean, that was the famous attribute of YouTube. I think YouTube has now canceled it about recommendation of the next video. And once you made it run, you actually ended up very, very quickly after 5, 10, 20 videos to either conspiracy or violent material. So we need to find also something different on that. On this challenge, we're still looking for great ideas, because a good DARPA challenge or a good JEDI challenge is about a clear problem to solve, but also a very precise metric for success. The metric is today not that clear, but then it's complete openness, zero bureaucracy, and immediate call for excellence. We don't pay for efforts. We really want breakthroughs, but we give all freedoms to researchers wherever they are. Face recognition, another topic that is, remember, I mean, you are all in Berlin. For those who are physically attending, remember what happened, I think now 3 years ago on the Christmas market. After that, you began to have first experimentation about face recognition on public spaces. And who could criticize a politician to do that? Because if there is a terrorist attack and we could have prevented it with face recognition, obviously it's the thing to do. But do we want a system with thousands of cameras and a centralized database? No, we need to do like in the age of internet, where basically ARPA came with this very simple but very powerful idea of the network is extremely resilient because it has no center. Can we do face recognition that is distributed in each of the cameras, and where each of the camera can, with small data, so we're not talking about big data anymore, small data have the same vision and mission than today the traditional algorithm running on massive data. And last but not least, we're working very hard, again, something that we need to go much more into detail on, homomorphic encryption. Basically, the idea here is, can we use these massive data pools that have been described before and without having to merge them with all the privacy issues, but use them as a single data pool, but with making sure that nobody can do the reverse engineering. So let me give you a very precise example on the deepfake one. So video, please. Since I'm here, I don't know if the video is running.
We're ready.
I think there was a video, and we saw it for a couple of seconds, then we heard you talking again. It's starting again now, I think.
Today, we eradicated AIDS.
President Trump is a total and complete dipshit.
Yeah, I was just really surprised.
The more you express yourself, the more we own you.
Après les fake news, voici le deepfake ou l'art ultime de la désinformation.
I think you saw it already once. So this is where my presentation ends. We are launching that. We have an amazing global scientific committee assembled, a program manager, a huge prize for the winners. It's going to be a super challenging bar. We're talking about 99% detection of deep fakes in less time than the time of the video. So that will be the precise metric for success. And imagine if the Europeans on this challenging topic of GANs can again take the lead on artificial intelligence and all the societal and economic implication it can have. So with that, if you also feel as motivated as we are all, I mean, we have 4,000 today in Europe, in 29 countries. If you want to help us craft the challenge, if you want to support with your engineering, scientific skills, if you even want to be part of the team that is a bit distributed all over Europe, feel free to reach out to us, follow our Twitter account, and I'm super happy to answer any question you may have on this topic of technology and democracy. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, André. Thank you for the impressive presentation. And we have a couple more minutes for questions. Please, dear audience, if you like, you can ask additional questions right now. André, first question is, will you solve, or are you aiming to solve the problem of deepfakes with your challenge once and for all, or will this be an ongoing competition between people creating and detecting deepfakes?
A quick anecdote. What makes DARPA so powerful and so different than other organizations, and we have the same functioning, is that people working at DARPA are there for 2 years. Exceptionally, they have another 2 years. Mm-hmm. Why do they do that? Because first, speed is of the essence. I mean, we would have had the same talk 9 months ago. It would not have been very clear. Today, we understand we are in a world where every day and every week counts. Otherwise, you're running after the curve. And the other thing, you need to permanently, technology is on the go. That's what I meant with Zoom. And think also about TikTok. TikTok, the international version, did not exist 3 years ago. And that's the real opportunity for the Europeans. Not try to build a European Google or European Amazon, but think about the next big thing. And so on your question on deepfakes, it's going to be a battle that will need to be fought. And that's why you need a little bit of revolutionary mindset. This is what we need. We cannot have institution, organization, and even regulation. That's my only point about the regulation on Europe. We should not build the regulation that lasts 20 years. This is impossible. We need to have pop-up regulation that are as fast as the technology that we are trying to. And every 6 or 12 months, revamp them. But imagine the structural change in the mindsets of the people on the Spree or in Brussels or in Paris for doing that. So we need also probably a new generation of people who think like that.
Right, thank you very much. We have a question from Kai, who first of all says, amazing talk, thanks. He asks, how realistic is one single solution to detect deepfakes or crime in general in a strongly federalist system like the EU or many of the member states? And how about the political execution afterwards, after the detection, in terms of crime law enforcement? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, again, we are not an EU institution. We basically took the famous Machiavelli talk is don't try to change organizations, and that may be my call to Hans and Chris, that we should talk more, and Fabian. You cannot change people, and that's probably what makes them beautiful, is try to set something up next to it. So we are structured as a foundation, and we think that it's with civil society working together with government and with the ecosystem that you are permanently on top of things. So there will be not one size fits all.
Right.
And by the way, we are not obliged, like a traditional research program, to fund one. If nobody beats our criteria, we will give out nothing.
Right.
If 3 very different approaches, like to a good math problem, solve the problem, we will support all 3 of them. So we are very, very pragmatic on that.
Great, thank you. While you were talking about deepfakes, I was wondering about the business model of deepfakes. And I thought that, of course, maybe you could do a deepfake about maybe a competing company, but of course, then you would obviously be one of the usual suspects. There is probably a case to be made for political influence, as you were also mentioning, the whole fake news and fake facts debate. But I was always also thinking that deepfakes might be the perfect opportunity for blackmail in the future. Is this something?
Absolutely.
Is that something that's already happening? Have you seen this in the wild already?
I mean, if you look at it today, 95% of deepfakes are porn. And they are basically now the most perfected form of ransomware. So you see increasingly ransomware which is connected with the potential deepfake. And I obviously it targets celebrities today, mostly female celebrities. So if you talk diversity, if you talk about women empowerment, and if you're not talking about deepfake, you're missing something very big, because this is affecting one part of the society more than others. And it will affect all the institutions in which we trust. Politicians, banks, financial institutions, and basically all the big consumer brands. They will be tomorrow, if they are not yet, affected by deepfakes, because once one of these very perfectionist deepfakes goes out in the market and you have some social media wizard helping make a buzz out of it, it's quasi unstoppable, and the hit on the reputation will be unfortunately very, very difficult to catch up. Yeah. So this will be the business model for those who are inventing these deepfakes.
Right. Thanks very much. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. There is one question that we, I think, can answer from Alex, which is rather a broader political question. What chances do you give liberal democracies in a contest with authoritarians under the aspect of efficient organization of societies with AI tech? Can they, the liberal democracies, defend their lifestyle?
If we, the paradox is that we live an era where the 2 key success factors are: 1, long-term thinking, giving a vision, because you don't motivate people by other things than giving them a perspective. And on the other side, incredible agility. The feeling we all have, countries are behaving a bit differently, is that we are lacking this compass. And that's where the authoritarian states, for bad reasons, are good, because they have this ability to think long-term, because they don't have the election process. And they are incredibly agile. I mean, for those who have spent time in China, it's very different than what you sometimes see in pseudo-expert saying it's everything vertical. No, China is the world of the gray zone. Well, some people sometimes look at Jack Ma with Ant Financial, pass the gray zone a bit too much, and then they get the hit. But otherwise, it's the world of experimentation. So I'm also pessimistic, but on the today's liberal democracies, think about the US. We thought the US was the democracy that will never vacillate. 4 years of Trump, 4 more years would have been probably more or less the end of what we know today. That's why we are all more or less so relieved. But hopefully we will take action, because what happens in the US might very well happen in Europe. So we need to change in the way that we give a vision again, and we stop these 6 months urgency Europe thing, which is a catastrophe. We need to give ourselves what are the values that make us give this perspective, and that's where I think we have an incredible opportunity. And on the other side, be so much more agile and not wait 3 months to understand that there's a pandemic hitting us, because that is probably the huge failure of our systems, not the individual people, but this famous Gordian knot that was described to us just before.
André, thank you very, very much. I think we are very curious of the results of your challenge. We're very much looking forward to that. Merci beaucoup. Vielen Dank. Thank you very much.
See you soon. Thank you.